Welcome to Audiogyan with Kedar Nimkar, a podcast that documents insightful conversations with Indian designers, artists, musicians, writers, thinkers, and creatives of all types. Catch us on iTunes or visit audiogyan.com for more Gyan sessions. Here's your host, Kedar Nimkar.
Mark Twain once said, "Work like you don't need the money, dance like no one is watching, and love like you have never been hurt." Seems like Mark Twain knew one of the secrets of Bhagwad Gita: do things without any expectations. To explore these philosophical thoughts and connect the dots of Western world to India's spirituality through dance, I have Ashley Lobo with us on Audiogyan. He needs no introduction for the people in the field of performing arts, but for those who don't know, Ashley is considered to be the spearhead of international dance in India. His career in performing art comprises of over 35 years of performing, choreographing, and teaching in India and overseas. So I welcome and thank you, Ashley, for giving your time. And it's a real honor to have you on Audiogyan.
Thanks, Kedar, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So as I mentioned, I would like to just understand and document few of your thoughts, like more philosophical aspects of passion for dance, your work overall, and the future of dance also in the current time. So we'll briefly touch upon it because anyways things are changing slightly due in the pandemic, but the main premise is about understanding your thought process. And I've come up with a few questions, and we'll just explore and understand your thoughts.
Sure.
Cool. So to begin with, I would go down the history and would like to ask a more primitive form of what was like dance in the primitive stage. Like was it a creation? Was it an invention? Or was it just a discovery? Because I did one Audiogyan with a very senior person in tabla, and he was like 80 years, and he said, Sudhir Mainkar, and he said that people just started understanding beats from the nature, and that's how tal was evolved. So similarly, I would like to understand where and how did like dance come from, and why is it also considered such a divine art form?
I think the source of dance is I think it comes from thousands and thousands of years ago, and it's very similar to music. I think it emerges from the human spirit and from the need to celebrate, the need to connect with the rhythm within ourselves, and that rhythm within ourselves then got translated outward into the body and into movement and into sound and to various other areas. So universal rhythm translated through the body to me as dance. And I think the emergence of that, very much like music, would have been very, very organic.
Mm-hmm.
Coming from the universe itself. I don't think it came actually from any particular need or desire. I think it came more from just a natural movement, I think, of the universe and understanding the rhythms of the universe. And we resonate with the universe's rhythms. So dance is basically a resonance of that. It's when you're not resonating with the rhythms of the universe is when you're actually disconnected and you're not dancing. Even breath in a sense is like dance. There is a certain lilt to it. There is a certain breath, like breath has a certain rhythm. And even that, the energy is dancing within and outside the body. So dance, I think, existed even before man existed. It exists in the universe.
Wow.
The trees are dancing all the time.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's very nice. And then why was it like, I'm sure there must be some instances where people started moving their bodies to a particular beat. So why, and like at what point in time people must have realized that this is sort of a divine thing to do, or again, is it inherent in nature? Any thoughts there?
I think from what I understand of dance right now, I think dance to me, I think the rhythmic nature of it is you have a heartbeat, you have a breath. I think falling in line with the rhythmic universe, so the rhythms of the universe through movement, brings you to a state of stillness, because when you're moving in rhythm with something, you automatically come to a point of zero. So in that sense, I think that's how dance took on the whole sense of divinity and took on the whole sense of becoming something that was about worship or stuff like that. It's like you dance to a point of going to the rhythm, taking the rhythm to a place where you go to a trance almost, and everything comes to zero, and that you connect to the infinite or the God or to breath or whatever. So to me, I think in my understanding of it, I think going to the infinite is basically you coming into rhythm with yourself and with the universe and bringing all three into one plane.
That's interesting. Okay. And then was it a? I mean, does it start like a solo activity, or it was always a group thing? I mean, any do we have any references like that?
I think there are many documented ideas of how dance would have started, but I think at the time when dance really would have started, nothing would have been documented. I'm a bit of a philosopher in the sense that I don't believe that anything documented necessarily comes from fact. I believe even that is hearsay, and that is hearsay coming from a place that is very, very recent. I come back to that ultimate thought that I think dance would have emerged and emerged from one person probably who started to move and found something. And then over a period of time, I believed it would have then moved out and been understood as a way of either bringing people together on that one universal rhythm through connecting through their own rhythms.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah, I mean these questions obviously like more towards like the academic side, but
Yeah.
it's just to set the context and get the flavor. So you engage with jazz, classical ballet, contemporary, urban, and funk. So what's your like overall process of, I wouldn't say reconciling, but yeah, just joining these two areas where you have the old age traditions of yoga and philosophy, and then the other spectrum you have these contemporary dance movements. So can you just elaborate on that, like what's the overall
See,
process like?
see, if you look at yoga, like even within yoga, yogic philosophy, you're looking at breath, which is pranayam, and you're looking at even the actual practice, which is asana.
Hmm.
So we already have pranayam and asana in yoga itself. Okay, so they're both. So one is physical mastery, and the other is the usage of the breath. In usage of the breath for meditation and using of the physical, you're actually combining both ways are ways to get to a point of zero to yourself. So for me, I think dance combines both of them. You're using physicality, but when you bring the breath usage into that from yoga, from the meditative process, you're actually then coming to a point of total realization of the body.
Hmm.
It's not just also as a dancer, I think like bhakti you serve.
Yeah.
And there is a philosophy of thought that you have to have as a dancer for the body to stay pure, which is dharma. So I think dance is very closely connected to yoga.
Hmm.
It does have the four limbs. You do connect with those 4 points of yoga within dance. Except in dance, like yoga is more seen as a ritualistic way of moving physically to as a physical exercise, whereas dance you're just using it as movement to connect and to either entertain or engage.
Hmm.
But I think the ultimate would be engagement because it would come from self engagement. And then when you self engage, you automatically engage the environment around you.
Hmm. So if you can give any example of how you can pick any like jazz or I understand classical ballet might have certain more resonance because of the classical form of it, but any other particular form, and then you try to marry these concepts, or you discovered that they are already married.
I
Can you
think,
give
I
any
think,
example?
yeah. So I think if you look at yoga and like if you understand yoga is basically mastery of the body. When you have mastered and understood the body and you've come in alignment with it, that is when you come to a point of zero. And I think it's the same with dance. So if I look at a dance style, like let's say jazz, for example, when you're studying jazz, what's the whole journey of any dancer? The whole journey of any dancer is to master the body and then renounce the body and allow the body to move by itself. Okay, and you're only dancing when you've completely renounced the body, when you've renounced all the technique that you've learned, and you allow the body to move itself, trusting that the technique already exists. So, in a way, when you're training to become a dancer in any form, from zero, you go up to, let's say, point A. At point A, you've mastered it, you've understood the physiology, you've understood the breath and the connection to the physiology. And then from A, you come back to zero, where you renounce the fact that you know all that language and you allow the body to free flow in space to either an intention or a rhythm or a narrative or something, trusting that whatever you have mastered is going to come through. So it's almost a whole process of acquisition and renunciation. And true dance is when you come back to the zero. So if I look at a style like jazz, for example, when you start off with jazz, like what do? You study the whole body. So you start off with, let's say, in a general class, you start off with understanding the physiology, which is like you roll down, you open up the spine, you open up the joints gently, then you work with the floor to align the body and create posture. So you clean up the posture, because the posture correction has to be, you've got to be in line with aligned with the universe in terms of your posture. After you finish posture, you then come up and then you start to do what we call isolations and coordination exercises. So you're learning how the different body parts coordinate together and how they work in isolation or in separation. Then you have a series of combination exercises which connect up the whole body through the fascial lines, which are basically connective tissue. So you're connecting up all 12 fascial lines through a series of connected exercises. And then from there, you then come down the hall, learning things like turns, or what we call chenets, or pirouettes, or padipares, which are step ball changes, shift of weights, which are like the and of a language. Which you can use by anybody else in the world, so you'll have a step, and then you have which will be a pirouette or a turn, step, and a padipare, step ball change. So any choreographer in the world would have that in that form. And then finally you bring the class down to a whole choreography, which is where you combine the whole alignment and the posture. You can align you use the isolation, the coordination, the usage of all the fascial lines, and the and off but into phrases of movement. And that's how a dancer learns. So once they've learned that and they've mastered that, then it keeps going up higher and higher, and the complexity of the movement starts to increase, and the ability of the strength and flexibility starts to grow, till you've conquered the movement and it's happening almost autopilot. And when it's happening autopilot is the point of where you start to renounce. And now you allow the body to improvise to the sound. And at that point of time, you're starting to dance. So the sound is actually what you're connected to, not so much the body anymore. The body just becomes like this speaker that is speaking out what the sound is already produced.
That's really fascinating. So I have two questions on that. One is, if you renounce, then how do you find the balance? Because there is an important part which is which individually also has to be achieved, and also in a group, right?
Yeah. I think you can. There are three parts to the body when you move. One is the inner center. So if you close your eyes and you just focus within, you'll find that you exist somewhere in the body. That's the center of the body, and we call that the center. Or we call that the dance center. Then you have your own physical body, which is your hands, legs, your head, and then you have what I call the universal body, which exists from the skin outwards to infinity. Okay, so when you move, you're mobilizing all three bodies. So when you move and you're mobilizing all three bodies, it's about understanding the 0 point of those three bodies, and everybody's listening to those 3 0 points. Does that make sense? So if you have 3 bodies and I have 3 bodies, we will connect on the universal body. Okay. Because you and I share the both same universal body. And the audience shares the same universal body. So as a dancer, you're not communicating with the physical body, you're actually communicating with the outer body. Because only in the outer body are you actually effective with an audience. Because then they can feel you. Otherwise, they can just see you.
Correct.
At that point, you're shifting energy. You're not just moving the body. Because you're moving the breath that's within and the breath that's outside. You're working with both breaths.
Correct. It makes complete sense, because I can connect the dots in the music world. Obviously, I'm not very informed about dance in general, and that's why this curious question as well. But in music, they say that if the two instruments are correctly tuned, and if you pluck one, the other also automatically sounds.
That's exactly, because what you're looking at is a universal vibration that's been activated by one body. And then that activation activates all the universal vibrations that exist in that room. So for me, always as a choreographer, I think I've actually worked as a choreographer only when people have been able to feel the work rather than see it. They should be able to close their eyes and still know that I've danced. They should be able to visualize what's happening.
Wow.
Because your resonance of the energy is so strong. Your understanding of how to shift the energy in the room is so strong.
It's intense to understand, even to visualize, because you're moving your body and creating those things. So it's slightly tough for me to comprehend. But if you can also talk about the prana paint technique, what it is about, and like I have few more questions around it. But
I think so. Prana paint is based on the particular issue. It's like it's basically, for me, prana is breath and painting is painting. So you're painting with breath. So if you look at your body, you've got breath within the body, and there's universal breath that exists outside the body, and they're separated by the physicality. So every time you move in the space. You're moving, you're shifting. The inner breath can shift through the body, the outer breath. So when I'm shifting, the inner breath is shifting through the flesh, the outer breath. You're painting the space. You're not moving the body, you're painting the space. So the whole body becomes a brush. And the breath inside is the paint. And the universal body on the outside becomes part of the paint that then splashes onto the canvas, which is either a human audience or into the space in general. So the planet paint technique was built on basically two things. One is that it focuses on breath and bringing you to your 0 point of complete breath. So your whole focus of movement comes from the breath. And the body is now relaxed, and you use the skin of the fascia. The skin is connected to the fascia. So we start by activating the skin to paint the floor. And then from painting the floor, that skin activates a certain sensation which goes into the fascia, which then activates the muscle. And the muscle starts to move, and then the breath and the muscle, the prana and the body starts to move by itself. So it's almost like it's self-activated. So you're not logically moving the body. You're allowing the body to move through an activation of breath and sensation. And the formats that you've studied are already in the fascial memory, so they start to manifest by themselves.
It is a slightly bouncer for me. If you can illustrate with any example, any recent show you did, or maybe any way you can communicate with an example.
Okay, it's okay. Let me explain. Let me explain it in another way. Okay, when you're dancing, you're not moving through space. You're always painting something. You're either painting the floor, you're painting the air, or you're painting another dancer's body. So what you're seeing is you're not seeing movement, right? If it's movement, then it's just acrobatics. But the moment one body is interacting with another body, there's one body painting another body, and that interaction is where the connection is and where the interaction happens.
Okay. When you say painting, you're actually, like in a layman's term, it's choreographing. So you're moving the other body around, or you're just pushing it, or you're creating spaces between that. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. So think of your body as a paintbrush. So if you take your hand and you think of it as a paintbrush, and you're painting the air outside, it's a very different movement to moving your hand.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so then it's quite achievable, not just with in a group or like a couple dance or whatever, but it's also possible in a solo performance as well.
Correct. So you can do it as a solo dancer, you can do it as a couple, you can do it. So when you're dancing with another couple, for example, your hand, let's say you're doing a couple dance. So your hand is against her hand. So with your hand against her lower back, you are painting. Her lower back is painting against your hand, and that's what creates the movement. It's not you doing geometrical steps. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the hand is gently caressing the lower back. That lower back sends a sensation through the center into the legs and the hands, and they move. And that for me is dance. Wow. The physical understanding of the mechanics of it has been done through years of practice before that. When you're actually dancing, you're not connected to the physical mechanics. It's presumed that the physical mechanics already is there. So the body is moving from a reflex that is started up through sensation and sound. It's not moving from a point of logic. It's like if I have to explain this in terms of like a sport, like a cricket, like a Sachin Tendulkar, if he's doing a cover drive, for example, he would have mastered that cover drive and the muscle memory. So when the ball is coming in at 157 kilometers per hour, he doesn't have the time to actually logically see it. There's a muscle memory that's already there, and he's working from instinct. There's an instinctive movement. So dance is like that. The muscles are memorized to a point where it's become instinct, and that is where you renounce the logic.
Wow. I can again connect a dot in music, because this is, I think I've sort of understood, because it takes like sometimes like a 40-45 minute for say like a Rashid Khan to establish say like a Bhairavi or a Mallar.
Yeah.
While Bade Ghulam Ali can like do it in like a 3-minute record, like a LP record. So I think both they've mastered the art of vocals and how to control the vocal cord, but the emotion aspect is I think with years of practice.
The emotional aspect comes when you trust the practice.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Beautiful.
When you trust the practice is when you actually start to dance. As long as you're still practicing, you're still a student.
Yeah. I can imagine, and like now I'm really curious to experience it live. So yeah, coming to that part, like prana paint is also sort of a like an indicator of a person going deep into say
It's you
spirituality
finding,
or
yeah, it's correct. It's
yeah.
you finding your spiritual voice and then using the body as an instrument to paint shapes and tell stories. But it's
Mm-hmm.
actually a spiritual voice that's coming from inside that you're sharing with. So your stories are not based only on your own life, but it's based on the collective life that you've seen around you. So when you choreograph, then you're bringing in other elements of other lives within the space because you are using that whole space in the creative world. It's not so linear and logical.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So, can you talk about like dance as a means of self help? Because this is one thing which has been. I mean, it's a separate discussion. It can happen like a different audiogan altogether. I understand,
Yeah.
but just briefly touch upon, especially if there's so much connection of spirituality to dance. I'm sure that it would be really helpful to just to get a glimpse of how how useful it can be in the current times of stress or anxiety or even like थोड़ा सा broader aspect देखेंगे like there's a lot of social fragmentation happening.
Yeah.
So you got the picture, right? In the
Yeah,
current
yeah,
time
yeah, yeah,
maybe
yeah.
like
I think
so.
dance in the current times is going to be is perfect. I've done quite a few interviews on this as well because right now we're in a place of isolation, and when we're in isolation, we tend to not activate our heart muscle so much as the head muscle because there's worry, there is concern, there is a sense of loneliness, there's a sense of all the negativity comes in because you're left by yourself. You know what I mean? To think. So either you go into a state of meditation and come to your deep center so you can observe everything, or you meditate through dance. Anything that brings you to your heart, brings you to a different place. Now, the very action of dance takes you out of your head and brings you into your heart. And so, for that, even if you dance for like 1 hour a day, just put the music on, you dance for 1 hour a day, it just gets you into another place and gets you out of the self talk. It gets you out of the constant chatter that's happening in your head. And there's a relief at some level in that. For me, that's a meditative space because at that one moment, you're just with the music, yourself, and whatever you see, which is your maker. You know what I mean? So in that moment, you're completely unified. There is no separation between the chatter and you. So I think dance can be a great kind of thing in that sense. Also, I think that when we do prana paint, which is also about breath and about realization, you're realizing to move from what you hear of yourself. It's the ability in prana paint to listen to yourself because you're listening to yourself and then you're moving. You're not moving and asking other people to listen to you. You are listening to yourself and you're observer and actor at the same time. So in that point of complete connection to yourself, you're completely disconnected from the outer world. In a time like this, I know you're isolated, but in a point of isolation, you want to understand real isolation, if that makes sense. Because you can very easily lose the term isolation in isolation of
The
brain
physical.
activity or brain engagement. Yeah. And that's one kind of isolation. But you can also go into a complete sense of who you are. And in seeing who you are in complete isolation, you also combine and you see everything. And in seeing everything, you're no longer isolated anymore because you're connected to your universal body. So in that sense, prana paint can really help you in terms of listening to your own inner voice, shutting out the unnecessary sounds that are in the mind that clutter, and at the same time connect to the universal body and recognize that you're not alone and you'll never be alone.
But this seems to be slightly disciplined. I mean, it needs to be disciplined because again, I'll borrow one more example from the music world. So when you take up like a guitar, it's fine. You can strum and you can just have sort of melodic sound to it. But if you take violin, it will sound very harsh for like couple of years. So similarly, dance if started really at a such a deeper level may become sort of disorienting as well. So, any thoughts around that?
It depends. It depends. Yeah, it depends on whether you're looking at treating or teaching a particular format of movement. You know, prana paint is not a format of movement. Prana paint is a yogic meditative movement technique that allows the person who's even a non-dancer to find their dance within them. So you are going the reverse. Like in dance, you normally teach the body how some steps. Here, you're listening to the body and seeing what the body wants to do.
Is it?
And you're listening to the breath and what the body. So it's more a meditative movement meditation than it is a dance. But in moving meditatively, you're automatically connecting to a sound, you're automatically connecting to a rhythm, and you're moving from a true sense of yourself. So there's no steps as such. It's basically you're just freestyling, but you're engaging your breath and every tissue and every cell in your body to move.
Is it somewhere similar to like the Baul movement or the Sufi music movement which happens?
Correct. It's like the Sufi movement, like how you have Sufi, but Sufi dancers turn. It's similar to that. It's not difficult. It's just a question of connecting. And that we in Prana Paint, what we do is we start off in a meditation where the dancers all lie down. And it's like Prana Paint can be for anybody. It can be for a lay person, it can be for a 70-year-old, 80-year-old. Because there's no age for you to connect to your breath. There's no age for you to listen to yourself. There's no age for you to move your body based on what you hear.
Interesting.
The trees don't have rules for how they move. They listen to the breeze and they go.
That's a wonderful way to look at it. Wow.
You know what I mean? So dance is not limited to a vocabulary. And limiting dance to a vocabulary would be extremely limiting. It's saying that a tree should only move a certain way. You know what I mean? Like, but the format of a dance is created so that, like asana, you have a formatted thing that gives you mobility and usage of all parts of the body through a logical method for someone who cannot approach it through an illogical way. But you can also approach dance illogically. You don't have to approach dance only logically. Just like you don't have to approach yoga only logically through the asana. You can also approach it through pranayam, which is breath, or through bhakti.
No, but you have to somewhere put discipline, have that rigorous training, and then bend the rules, right? You can't really, because that's the stream which is happening. I can see clearly there is a lot more chaos just because of understanding the basics and then jumping the gun, not really understanding the rules of it also. So basic at a theory part is always good, but basics at a practical aspect also is equally important, right?
No, it's very important. It's very important. See, you can come to this realization. These realizations will come to you after you've exited the body. Once you've conquered the body and you've understood it, then is when you start to approach it and start listening to it. Before that, there is a need to understand it. Once you've conquered yourself through understanding the body, then you can think of approaching it from without using the body and without using the patterns. So, like for me, when you talk of improvisation in contemporary dance, and improvisation, another word for improvisation is exit. That means you've entered the form, you've mastered it, and now you've exited it. So contemporarizing any dance form is actually going to a classical form, mastering it, and then looking at how you can improvise on something that you've mastered. So if you haven't entered, how can you exit?
Beautiful.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I can. So
a lot of people say I'm doing contemporary dance, but they've never entered. So what are they exiting?
Yeah,
you cannot contemporize something you haven't understood or mastered. That would be extreme arrogance.
Correct. You put it really beautifully. So moving on, slightly changing tracks, I have like last two questions. So in one of your articles published, I think in 2017, during your Agni production through the Navdara India Dance Theatre, you mentioned about passion can create. I mean, I can see like a nice segue to this. Like passion can create or destroy. In creating, we destroy, and in destroying, we create. So if you can elaborate on this, please. And I'm also understand, I'm interested in knowing what got destroyed as we kept evolving dance also. So that could be the second part of the question, but just to understand that particular context.
Okay, so there's two parts. I think passion for me, Agni for me is fire, and fire to me is passion. Okay. Passion is noted by fire for me. So passion can create. So the fire energy in you can create or destroy. So in layman's terms, I can be extremely passionate and I can go out there and I can build 50 villages and help people. Or that same passion can make me sit down and out of my anger, burn down a train, or burn down a whole village. You know what I mean? So passion can create or destroy in that sense. In a broader, normal perspective. Taken at another level, any kind of evolution requires the destruction of a previous thought to create a new thought. You do not improvise on a thought. You destroy the understanding of that thought to create a new thought. Otherwise, it's not new. It's just an improvisation. Does that make sense? So for a constantly evolving person, you have to be in a constant state of creation and destruction of yourself. As an artist, you've got to be constantly destroying your previous idea to find a new one. If you don't destroy the previous idea, then you are still attached to it and you'll just go from A to B. But if you want to go from A to lamppost and really seek to understand a larger perspective of your craft, then you need to destroy, not just evolve, not just move.
But again, this also has to happen once you're mastered, right? Because otherwise it will be very anarchic, right?
At some level, yes. At some level, no. For example, if you're learning, let's say you're learning because you're a musician. So let's say you're learning the guitar. To create the craft of the guitar, you have to destroy the sensation of pain in your fingers. You cannot keep that alive. Sure. Because you keep that alive, you've got to destroy the pain in your fingers and you've got to create the thought you want to share with the audience through those fingers when they press against the string.
Interesting.
So at any point of time, you're always, whenever you're doing anything, when you're learning anything, there's a part of you that you have to destroy to become something else. You've got to let go of you. You've got to surrender. Because if you're in a state of half surrender, like imagine if I'm half thinking about the pain in my fingers when I'm playing that, I can't really communicate the thought that I want to through the guitar. The chord will also be half. It'll sound strained. But if in my own self, if I've destroyed the idea that pain exists and I've created for myself a new reality of I'm producing melody, then the melody comes through. There can be not even one breath of pain in that melody unless I want to bring that pain in.
Correct.
So I have to destroy my physical experience to produce that sound. Even when you're learning dance, if you're doing the first stretch, you have to destroy the reality of what you believe your body is capable of to go to the next realization of the body. You cannot live in the past. You have to live in where you are right now and where the body's feeling and where it wants to go. You've got to listen to the body. You've got to destroy your idea of the body to move to the next point of the body. So it's a constant construction and deconstruction. And when you stop destroying, you stop creating. If you get attached, you cannot destroy. But then you're flatlining. You're stagnant.
Correct. I know. I mean, this I have to listen to this again to just comprehend it further. But the closest which I can visualize is maybe the Whiplash ka last scene, right? He just doesn't care about anything, and he's in that rhythm which he has probably mastered, and he wants to just express.
There you go. So now what he's done is he's destroyed any logical sense or rules in his head. And that has been the birth of the real music. And that is what I was talking about, even with dance, you're renouncing it.
Correct.
But as on your journey to dance, you're making very small destructions and creation, the destruction and creation, then you get the macro destruction and creation, and then you're born as the artist. So you make many minor destructions and creations to come to the macro artist, and then you have to give it all up at a macro level to become the real artist who is just listening and allowing the body to play by itself. The fingers don't even know that there's pain anymore. They only know how to produce sound through many hours of destroying the pain that the string pressed against the skin and the nerves.
Beautiful. Now it seems like inconquerable.
Yeah. It's not really. I think to a large extent, I don't think it's inconquerable. I think it's a matter of choice. And it's a matter of accepting that the only change is change.
Correct.
The only constant is change. I mean, like the only thing that remains the same is that you have to change. You can't stay in the same place. And the moment you understand that, then destroying yourself and destroying your current existence is no big deal.
Cool. I think, Ashley, you're just like, it's very, very interesting to know further of your thoughts, and we can just keep going on. But given the framework which we have, I think I have one last question, which is, what sort of after 35 years plus, you must have given like a real deep thought about what's the future of dance for you. I mean, there are certain trivial sections to it with online classes and like social. So we'll take the trivial part first.
Okay.
which is about like how our group dance is going to evolve, how is like a couple dance going to evolve,
Sure.
and then like overall, like at a macro level, where do you see dance ka future?
I think in the future, I think it is going to be, from what I can see, there is going. I don't think human interaction will ever drop, because that will be the death of the human race if we don't interact. So I think there will be still human interaction. I think you'll still have performances and live performances, and you'll still have that interaction, but it'll be greatly reduced, because now the emergence of another digital form of interaction and engagement will come in.
Hmm.
In that sense, in the digital space, we'll probably still have content where you're interacting with 2 and 3 people and one person, not necessarily in the immediate sense, but down the track. In the immediate space, you won't have interaction with people like in duets and trios and group dance and stuff like that. But down the track, I do believe it will come back. Maybe not as much as it used to, because now it's like anything else. All of a sudden, there's this, like, the destruction of the physical stage has given birth to the internet for movement. Do you know what I'm saying? When you create, when it destroyed, that physical space got destroyed, it gave birth to another place where the art could happen in a different way, in a more evolved way, in a sense. But I don't think that this will completely die out just yet, because we haven't yet come to that place where human beings don't want to meet, or I think it'll take a while. It'll take a while. Right now, I think you'll have both. Initially, for the next 6 months, I think to a year, you'll probably maybe have more interaction on the internet. I think down the track, you'll have a combination of live and some of that live recorded, because internet would have found a place for itself, and you'll have both.
Correct.
I don't think either will disappear.
Yeah. I mean, in a long run, the classical forms, there's still going to be ballets which are going to be like maybe 100, 500 people sitting in together and watching that. I think that will never ever go away.
That can never go, because I don't think people came together for art for the sake of only the art. I think it was also a social gathering.
Correct.
It was a place where people came together to talk and chat and socialize. The music was just something that gave them a reason to come together. The dance was just a reason for them to come together, because that brought them together. So you bring people together on music, or you bring people together on dance. But once they come together, they don't just partake of the music and the dance, they partake of each other as well. So I don't think you can move to such a point of isolation where you'll never have those gatherings. They'll always exist. Maybe in probably more safer ways for considering the changing environment. But I don't think it'll ever disappear.
I would actually slightly counter here, because you're being on the stage and you think that people have come, but at least people like me have come for the art, and social gathering is just happening by the way.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But that's exactly, you're right. You're absolutely right. That, you come to see the art, but then, social gathering is going to happen.
Correct.
And so no matter what, either you'll go meet at a pub, and how many times can you meet at a pub? How many times can you meet at a restaurant? At some point, you're going to think like, okay, I want to engage my mind. I want to engage another side of me. And that's when you'll want to go to a theater. But then if you're in a theater, you're getting an interaction of people. Whereas if you're sitting at home, you don't get that. So there is I don't think that'll go. I cannot see that going in a hurry.
Correct. Cool. And any last concluding thoughts on, I mean, this just struck me right now that we are working in the digital space, and there are certain things which are shut for the like social gatherings and stuff. So we are building products, we are building stuff which can be really powerful when things open up. Similarly, any word of, or I wouldn't say word of advice, but suggestions for budding dancers, that this is the time that you can.
I think even before this, like there's been already a huge move into mixing performing arts and the digital medium. So in terms of multimedia, there's already been a huge move in contemporary dance overseas. So I don't think it's new, whether it's the usage of sound sensors or movement sensors, in movement, or the usage of light sensors in movement, or the usage of 3D projection in movement, with movement. I don't think that is new. That's already existed. And I think this is just going to speed up the possibilities and the ideas of that, because now it's brought the spotlight onto another way to project art. So all of a sudden, that was an ancillary, and this was and stage was a main. Now all of a sudden, that's been taking center stage for the last 4 months, and will probably take center stage for another 6 months. But that'll force people to figure out how to make this medium more advanced. So I see that. I think one of the things I'd advise everyone to do is, like, I have been collaborating a lot more in the last 4 months than I have in the last 1 year. Like, I've had 3 interactive collaborations with people from all over the world on the internet. So because you don't have to travel. It doesn't cost you money to rehearse something. And I would never have entertained that thought 6 months ago. I would have said, no, I have to go there and rehearse with them. But now, because of the situation, I've rehearsed with dancers a dancer sitting in Japan, another dancer sitting in Mumbai, a musician sitting in Goa, all 3 Japanese, and we put on a live internet show. So it's like, I couldn't even have thought of it 6 months ago. So there are many opportunities in a time like this. It's not just a point of problem. There are opportunities because you don't have the cost of traveling.
Correct. Absolutely.
You have audiences that are 100% there. They are not distracted by anything. They're just at home. So if you can produce something that's really interesting, they will come and see you. If they're doing dance classes, today I can reach any bedroom in the country or in the world. Earlier, I was only taking classes in Delhi and Mumbai, where I was physically. So now my whole idea of taking classes has changed. So, out of every challenge, there's always an opportunity. And I think as artists, being creative, we should be creative, and we should be looking at the opportunities at a time like this, and not looking at just the challenges that we're having. Because to me, there is no challenges. There's only an opportunity, because this will also pass, and then we'll come back with an and, not with an either or. And we'll have evolved in this. Do you know what I mean? We would have found different ways to move forward with the art.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think this is a good note to end this. Obviously, I'll add like all the links for people to consume and to connect with you, collaborate with you in the show notes. On that note, thanks, Ashley. Really thankful for giving your time, and it was really an enriching experience talking to you.
Not at all. My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thanks.
And that's it from today's Gyan session. Catch us on iTunes, Saavn, Stitcher, or any podcasting app you use. Do rate us on iTunes and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Stay tuned for more Gyan on Audiogyan.com. Till then, bye.